And we have a break in the wintry theme here. It's going to get up into the mid 30s today and balmy 40 something tomorrow, but it will plunge again, apparently. And Monday, we're going to get slammed. So, are you ready? Do you have your gotchkis, Barrett?
I've got my fleece, so I'm ready for the Arctic blast.
That's good. Gotchkis are what get you through the really hideous experiences.
Oh yeah, you'll
Uh,
have to clue me in. I've never heard that word before.
that is a Polish word for long underwear, gotchkis. So if you're wearing your gotchkis and have a little potato kopika and maybe with some scrambled eggs for breakfast, you're ready to brave the fiercest of winter's weather.
All right, I can take it. I've always been sort of temperature insensitive. You know, when I was a kid, I'd go out and play in the snow for hours and hours on end, and my mom would be worried about me. Like, she'd take my gloves off and check my fingers to make sure none of them were starting to turn any colors.
Mhm. And they do that. My goodness, it is strange how we have created all these sensations. And, at times we really appreciate them and enjoy them, but at other times we get overwhelmed by them. And
Mm.
that is a reason for the course, is looking at our decision making capacity and perhaps rethinking what it is that really is meaningful for us in life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we always have that opportunity to go deeper into peace or to kind of stray away from it. And I think every time even we're sensing anything, it kind of gives us that chance to say, which hand do I want to hold? Do I want to hold the hand of love, or do I want to kind of grip fear instead? And um, I think that these kinds of things really kind of make it apparent. When we're going outside and it's freezing cold, the question that the course always asks us is, what is it for? Well, what is it really for? The sense of feeling very cold, it actually ultimately is initially supposed to be proving that we are a body, proving that this body is our identity. But we can start to say, well, maybe there's another purpose for that. Maybe I can actually use this experience to learn something new, to learn that what I really am is spirit, and that I can't really be touched by the things of this world.
Yeah, that was Mary Baker Eddy's, you know, approach. She was the founder of Christian Science and a very brilliant woman, and had a profound influence on Helen Schuckman in uh, Helen's growth and questioning what reality was, period of her life. But Mary Baker Eddy always used to relate back to the animals, and she would say, the buffalo and the birds and all these other critters, they endure through the harshest of weather, and they don't really seem to be bothered by it. The birds are sitting on the lines or the branches, and they're singing away, and all the other critters are either hibernating or moving around, almost oblivious to the harshness of winter. I always, after we have a storm, I'll go out and look on the back deck, and there's almost little tracks across the snow, which is a strong indicator that uh, life goes on in the animal kingdom. They are undaunted by it. But then when we domesticate animals, we project all of our sensitivities on them, and that's when we have, you know, kitties and puppy dogs getting pneumonia and leukemia and all kinds of other weirdness. But in their natural state, it doesn't seem to be uh, the way that the world unfolds. It's only our little capacity to try and hold on to the body and hold on to our smallness that makes us vulnerable to all of nature's uh, ups and downs and catastrophes and disasters.
Yeah, I think that we can really project either innocence or fearfulness on anything. You know, we can look at the outside world and see fear, or we can look on the outside world and see love, see truth, see joy. It's funny you were saying about the tracks after the snow, because we have some tracks right outside our sliding glass door of a skunk that kind of just ambled along yesterday. So it is kind of nice to see that symbol, and it's a reminder that no matter how cold it gets, and metaphorically or physically, that life does go on. That impetus for truth can't really be frozen completely. It might seem dormant for a long time, but eventually we get back into the flow, and we get back into that sense of joy and that sense of aliveness. So I think this is a nice little intro to our section for today, which is number 19 in the Manual for Teachers. It is, what is justice? And I think it's an interesting section because it really talks about justice in a way that we don't normally think of it. In our world, justice is retribution. It's getting even. Tit for tat, an eye for an eye. All of the code of Hammurabi. It's kind of a sad and harsh thing. But here Jesus gives us a different idea of it. So I'll read just a little bit of this first paragraph. Justice corrects the interpretations to which injustice gives rise and cancels them out. Neither justice nor injustice exists in heaven, for error is impossible and correction meaningless. In this world, however, forgiveness depends on justice, since all attack can only be unjust. So I think that it really kind of helps us to see that just like forgiveness is a correction for a mistaken idea of separation, justice is a correction for the idea that attack is possible and real. And we start to see that no pain ever is fully justified, and no sting of anything we felt really has any real basis. And as we step into that, the whole kind of ball of wax starts to just melt away.
That is very true. And, one of the things that this world offers are all these opportunities to see what is perceived to be unjust rampant, and we're surrounded by it. You see people who are honest and concerned and invested in making the world a better place, and they go out and they put themselves on the line, and frequently they get smashed down. It's like a good soul who is a very kind and considerate person ends up on the wrong end of a lawsuit, or ends up in the wrong end of some kind of police activity or government activity or whatever, or even church activity, because we had for a long time that lunatic fellow there in Kansas who was particularly inflamed about gays, among other things. And he would go out and create all kinds of chaos as American soldiers were being brought back from the war deceased. So we see, this proliferation of injustice around us at all times. And the natural inclination is to approach it and try to fix it, try to unravel it and make it better. And doing that from the level of the ego just creates new opportunities for an expanded process of that pendulum swinging very, very widely between the two extremes. And so really the only solution is to get back into being an anchor for the Holy Spirit and for the Christ consciousness in this world. And we can accomplish so much more simply by being present, simply by being here as witnesses to the non-reality of all of these processes, and that really is one of our most powerful tools, is to be able to look at an illusion and declare it to be an illusion, and contribute to ultimately dispelling it.
It's true. It's true. It kind of puts the lie to this idea that there's a real problem that needs fixing. The ego would love us to believe that, and a lot of times we get sucked into that way of thinking. But really, what we're saying is there ultimately is no problem. In the workbook, there's a couple lessons. That there is. I think it's something like there is only one problem and there's only one solution. And the one problem ultimately is this belief that we're not already home in heaven, that we think we're somehow abandoned or off alone by ourselves. And the solution to that is always just realizing that's not so. So it looks like we have all these variety of problems. It looks like we have all these different issues. But ultimately, there's only one problem and there's only one solution. And so we can just go back to that idea again and again, because the next time the kind of web of this physical world sort of weaves it around us and we get trapped in it, we can say, I don't think I want to do that this time. I think I'm going to make a different choice. And we start to kind of see through the game of it. We start to see through the ego's deceptions and realize, no, I don't want to buy into that old story anymore. In a way, it's like we're growing up. When we're children, we hear these fairy tales, and they're very entrancing. They're very beguiling, and we kind of believe in them. But at a certain point, we get that, no, that's not really the truth, and we sort of decide we're too grown up for that. And a similar thing happens on our spiritual path, where we start to get that these old thoughts of pain and judgment and one versus another and kill or be killed, they're like children's stories that they don't do the same thing for us that they used to. And we can start to say, no, I don't want to believe that anymore. And that's a real turning point on our path.
That is. And, it goes on to give us a clearer vision of how to approach this idea of seeking justice. In the third paragraph, it says, salvation is God's justice. It restores to your awareness the wholeness of the fragments you perceive as broken off and separate. In other words, seeing all of humanity as being separate from you. And the reality is that we are all one life. And the more sensitive we become to that reality, the more we are inclined to step back from pronouncing judgment and from attacking our brothers and sisters, and realizing that they're confused and they're fearful and they're dysfunctional. And so we have to overlook all of those negative attributes, all of those things that appear to us to be problematic, and clean the slate and call in the justice of God in every situation that we encounter in this world. And the way we do that is to invoke the Holy Spirit and ask the Holy Spirit to let us see with vision, to let us see the truth, and to get beyond all of the things that we would condemn each other for.
Yeah, and I think that as we see our brothers and sisters who are confused and they're hurting, the other thing that kind of helps us kind of not pull the trigger when we're tempted to attack is to realize that there really is only one of us. That there is no separate person. There's no other being out there. And when we start to get that, we realize that every condemnation that we make, we're only making about ourselves. And we start to say, I don't think I want that anymore. Every time I think that person's a jerk, I'm actually saying, I think I'm a jerk. and we can start again with this idea of self-love, to say, that's not true. I can let go of the pain of self-judgment, because it's really no different than when I judge another person. And the benefit of that is that we actually start to feel better. We actually start to not have this layer of guilt and shame that we're putting on ourselves, generally unknowingly, and we start to feel more free and more open and more in touch with that innocence that we're talking about.
Exactly. And that is a huge, huge step that we have to prepare ourselves to make, is to be able to forgive the world in its entirety. Every appearance of injustice, every appearance of, tragedy and despotism and all the horrors that the ego projects into our consciousness, into our vision. We have to realize that that is our ego, which is the self that we are, 99% of the time operating under. And we have to start to step away from that part of self that is always in attack mode, is always looking for revenge, is always trying to create the illusion of having been harmed or joining the cause of those who have been harmed. So it is, a rarefied atmosphere that we start to walk into as we start trying to live on a day-to-day basis with the Course. Because the reality is that none of this is a fact. None of this is truth. And the way that we can comprehend that perhaps a little bit more easily is that truth and reality are eternal. And nothing that we're experiencing in this realm is eternal. It is so ephemeral that it's like smoke, just, evaporating almost immediately in the air. And that's what the whole content of this world is. So we have to be able to let go of our attachment to it and let go of our projecting anger and guilt and fear and hostility onto each other because of this movie that we imagine that we're participating in. So it is definitely a challenging journey. Anybody who is stepping into the Course is challenged not just on a daily or an hourly basis, but it's a minute to minute and second to second recognition that all of this you don't try to respond to by denying it even. You merely nothingize it in your mind's eye. You watch the movie, you have no attachment to the movie, and ultimately you get up and you walk out of the theater and everything is completely harmonious once again.
Just make sure to throw out your popcorn bucket in the garbage on your way out. So.
Yes, the eternal garbage bucket that is at every door that we pass through.
Yeah, I like that idea of leaving the movie theater. That's our real goal. We don't want to just fix the images that are showing on the screen. We want to actually realize that we already are at home in that oneness. We already are at home in that light. And the more that we make that shift, the gentler the movie becomes. Even if the images on the screen don't really change a whole lot, we're less enthralled by it. We're less taken in by the movie. And we can still enjoy the movie. We can still have fun at the good times, but it stings a little less when things don't seem to fit an idea that we've decided is how things should be. So it is, like you say, an ongoing process to keep noticing our attachment to this world, to keep noticing our attachment to this body, this individual self that we think we are. It's why it is a lifelong journey to work with this Course, because for the most part, people don't want to let go of the idea that this body is their self. But there's one line that's repeated over and over again in the workbook, and it's, "I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me." And it doesn't totally help us see exactly what that alternative is, but as we let go of the false ideas, as we let go of what is untrue, truth is simply revealed. Truth simply is. It doesn't need to be reaffirmed. It doesn't need to be claimed. But when the false is gone, uh, when the block to that light is undone, then the light simply shines.
Exactly. And, one of the things that occurs is when we're sitting in the theater and the axe murderer, gets ready to lop off a head, sometimes we close our eyes in order to disconnect from that. We go into that blankness, that darkness, where we're no longer witnessing all of these horrors for a period of time. And that's like death, our imagined dance with death. That is part of this physical experience. The truth is that you can close your eyes as long as you want to, but you're still alive. And you have to look at what's on the screen and realize the non reality of it. And that's what gives you the power to ultimately get up and walk away from it. Because it is very seductive. Even the darkest, uh, most macabre parts of all of this, there is a seductive edge to it. And we have to realize that part of the reason we are drawn into it is because we are being seduced by these really vicious and nasty things that are being projected into our surroundings.
It's true. I think, on this level, only certain people like to go watch the horror movies, those torture movies that they have coming out. But on a different level, we all are kind of seduced by it. We all have a bit of that craving for death, for pain, for all these issues. But we can come to kind of identify that and let it go. And that's our ticket to moving through this. So I thought it might be nice just to kind of read the last paragraph of this section. It says, "Pray for God's justice, and do not confuse His mercy with your own insanity. Perception can make whatever picture the mind desires to see. Remember this. In this lies either heaven or hell as you elect. God's justice points to heaven just because it is entirely impartial. It accepts all evidence that is brought before it, omitting nothing and assessing nothing as separate and apart from all the rest. From this one standpoint does it judge, and this alone. Here all attack and condemnation becomes meaningless and indefensible. Perception rests, the mind is still, and light returns again. Vision is now restored. What had been lost has now been found. The peace of God descends on all the world, and we can see, and we can see."
That is truly a beautiful ending for this section, saying that statement, and we can see, doubly reinforced there. That's a strong punctuation that doesn't normally occur in the course. So it's telling you that, vision is what we're ultimately aspiring to so that we can, in fact, see.
Yeah, I think that's it, exactly.
Well, Barrett, we do have something coming up in 4 days here. Sunday, we've got a gathering going on down in Alsip at Transformation. And there's still ample amounts of room. We have people signed up, but we would welcome more. So if you're thinking about what it is that you would like to do on Sunday, maybe spending it with Barrett and myself and some other very joyous souls who are looking to express more of their own divinity might be a well planned afternoon.
Be great to have you there. So I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to being with you there, Chris. yeah, there's so much depth to this material that it's like there's always more for us to discover. There's a real richness, so I treasure every opportunity I get.
Yes, it is. It's like peeling the onion. You know, every time that you chat with somebody, and our discussions have been such a blessing, I think, to both of us. But every time you have a discussion, you're peeling another layer off of that resistance onion
Mm.
that we're all working with in this world.
Well said. Well said.
Well, my friend, I will see you in 4 days.
All right. I look forward to it, Chris. You have a good rest of your day.
You as well.
All
Bye
right.
all.